Hello and welcome to the Holistic Pain Relief Summit. I'm thrilled that you've taken the time to join us. My name is Trish Rossiter and I'm your host. This, this summit series is for men and women living with pain who want to get back to living as best they can on a daily basis without needing to take medication or invasive procedures. If you haven't already done so, I invite you to join our Facebook group. Each day of the summit, I'll go live and share a summary of what our speakers have spoken about. Post your questions, chat with the presenters, and we'd love to hear as well your best takeaways from the day. I am delighted to have with me today Melissa Reynolds. Melissa is a mama to four, a wife to one, an author to 4 books, and the founder of Melissa versus Fibromyalgia blog. Melissa's mission is to share what she learns about managing fibromyalgia so that others can reduce the time it takes to help to learn what will help them. So thank you very much, Melissa, for joining us this afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
So Melissa, where are you coming from today?
Auckland, New Zealand.
That's
around
far.
the world. Yeah.
And it's 10 o'clock in the morning there, and it's 6 o'clock in the evening here in EST in Canada, just for the speakers to know. So Melissa has managed to have someone to watch her littles while she's chatting with us. So Melissa, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story, when your difficulties started having pain, and what it took to get diagnosed and such? Was that a long journey to get diagnosed?
Sure was, yes. Yeah, so the pain started, back at 14 years old. I remember going to the doctor and having forearm pain. And it was diagnosed as tendinitis, and I was sent away with a wrist splint thing. But I just remember over like my teenage years, it kind of getting worse. And it would end up like my shoulders would be burning at the end of the day. And I was sent to a few specialists, but they left me with the distinct impression they thought I was making it up because the intensity changed and where I experienced the pain changed, and they didn't like that. And so I had to keep muddling on with this pain. And in my last year of university, I ended up with some kind of very bad bug. I was very sick. It was almost like a flu, but it needed antibiotics to clear. But after that, the chronic fatigue never went away. And so after that, the chronic pain escalated. And so I ended up with really bad back and neck pain, just constant. And I went through trying all sorts of therapies, chiropractors, massage therapists, osteopaths, and eventually around 24, I went to my doctor with this article that someone sent me from the UK about fibromyalgia. And the doctor looked at the article, looked at me, and said, "Yep, okay, it's fibromyalgia," and did nothing else. And at this point, I had been put on amitriptyline for some bizarre reason. Like no one ever explained why, but that's all I had. And I kept trying really hard. And at about 26, I was just so burnt out and exhausted that I had a heap of other health problems mounting. So I ended up moving home with my parents and moving to a warmer city. I reduced my work hours and started heavily researching things I could do to help myself. And I found a fantastic physical therapist who helped me figure out some of the issues like with my trigger points and my neck. They were constant and they're still chronic after 10 years of appropriate treatment. They are better and I can get the pain level right down, but it will never go away because it was left for so long. But basically, since then, over the last 10 years, I've progressively put a fantastic whole of life plan in to enable me to achieve what I want to achieve with a lot less pain and fatigue.
Right. And you have achieved, just from your family life alone, you now have 4 wonderful children. I can't imagine having 4 being healthy, let alone, as you were struggling throughout this, this difficult journey. So what you tried lots of things. Physio made a difference.
Mm.
I understand you're taking some medication and that's making a difference. Um, but you also have, you focus on your lifestyle
Yes.
to help decrease the pain and fatigue. So would you like to tell us more about that, and also then micro yoga? And if you'd like to talk about those things and how it makes a difference for you.
I call it my whole of life management plan, which I know is not technically correct English, but I like to distinguish it from just holistic, because sometimes that means maybe one basket of tools, whereas I have multiple baskets of tools, which I dip in and out of. And so there's like key pillars. And the first thing is working on sleep as best as possible. And that involves obviously good sleep hygiene, good practices, and sometimes supplementation and things like that. But mostly it's around trying to optimize that with what I can control. And what I can control is things like sleep hygiene and good practice. And another key area is pacing. So using the pain and energy levels I have well. And so for me, that looks like, again, getting as much good sleep as I can. But in the middle of the day, I do yoga nidra guided meditation because I can't nap. So that's my rest, and it is the most profound rest ever. That is, if anybody looks through my website or reads my books or takes me to my trainings, they will notice that is my favorite yoga tool. And it's a yoga tool that you do lying in your bed, completely relaxed. So that's my absolute favorite. And I use that also in flares. So if I have a migraine or if I'm suddenly feeling a lot worse, I will go and do yoga nidra meditation. But I've also created kind of a plan with everything. So gentle movement is very important. Healthy eating is important. I haven't settled on any specific kind of eating plan. I've done a lot of research on it, but I think listening to my body is really important. A general sense of reducing stress, pursuing my mission. So I am very mission oriented. So in my kind of day job, I work for a nonprofit because it's important for me to be driven by a sense of purpose. So maintaining that purpose. And yeah, obviously with my children. And it's great because we just work together, making a healthy lifestyle. We talk about how we eat and how we sleep and how we exercise and our spirituality and all that kind of thing. So we create that healthy lifestyle together. And yeah, you'll, I guess, notice there that yoga is a really important part of that. But I never do strenuous yoga poses or classes. I've never done a 90-minute class, that's for sure. Unless if it was restorative yoga and I was meditating for most of it. But my big thing, is, like you said, the micro yoga. So taking the tools of yoga, breaking them down into what we need and using them across the day. So that means using stretches that help me as I need. So I indicated before, my neck and my back are tricky to manage. So I'm often doing cat and cow pose and neck stretches with the breath. So I do that across the day whenever I need it. It's kind of like my Band-Aid that I use constantly. And the yoga nidra, again, is the most important yoga tool I think anybody could try. It helps calm the nervous system, it helps with rest, it helps decrease pain. That's my experience, but also that's the research around it, which is really exciting. Side effect free help with pain and fatigue. Yeah.
So could you tell us more about yoga nidra, I can't even say it. Tell us more about that and how you spell it for our listeners. Because it's not one of the more common yogas for my circle anyway. I mean, I don't want to generalize, but I know it is, as you mentioned, it's a different method of yoga and that you do lying down. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So yoga nidra, Nidra, it is what they call yogic sleep. So it's deep rest, and it is a lesser known tool, but unless it's like that bias of, because I am aware of it, I notice it more, but it is lesser known, I think. But I think it's such an important tool for everybody these days. Everybody can do with some deep rest and relaxation and calming the nervous system, but especially people with chronic pain and fatigue, because often you have issues with sleep as well, and they are multi-directional, right? You have trouble with sleep, so you get more pain. If you have more pain, you have trouble with sleep.
Yes.
And yoga nidra it's a meditation, but it's guided. And I suggest people do it in bed with a heating pad or whatever makes them super comfortable, and just submit to the process. So it's just guided meditation. It's a specific script, and so almost all nidras will be recognizable to you in the process that they take. So you start with winding down, turning off the senses, tuning into your body. You start with a big body scan meditation, so you check in with all parts of your body, and then you can move into visualizations and breathing practice. But I have never felt so good in my body as those first 10 minutes where you emerge after a practice. It is the most profound rest, and my body is never that quiet in any other way or time. So
Wow.
really wonderful.
It almost sounds like you want to, one would want to stay there and not leave.
I don't like, it doesn't last that long because my brain will get out and then think about all the 67 things that need to be done. But I love to do, so I'll schedule about half an hour, but then I always try and spend a little bit of time just staying completely still in bed, and almost reintegrating, but just really being aware and grateful for how I feel in that moment, like the just complete stillness and calmness of my body. Unless you've lived with chronic pain for a very long time, I don't know if you can appreciate it fully. But it is the most relaxed I've ever felt.
That's amazing. Melissa, I know you have many, many resources on your website and on your blog. Do you have any links to favorite, or do you do guided Nidra yoga for people?
Yeah, so I have a couple of free yoga nidra meditations on my YouTube channel, and I've got a couple of trainings on the blog that kind of talk about what it is and why you might do it, and then links to those free classes. And I do have a course about yoga nidra, and it's in any program I ever teach, any course I ever offer, I always teach yoga nidra, because a lot of people worry, oh, I can't do yoga. I've got no mobility, or, I'm tired, or I get sore, or I might not be able to keep up.
Yes.
There is never a time you can't do yoga nidra. Like, if you can lie in your bed, you can do it. So
Okay.
that's the one thing I teach.
Amazing.
Mm.
That's wonderful. Um, so I noticed you talked about experiments that you've done with fibro. Um, are there any other tips and tricks that may help our listeners?
Yeah. Well, how long have you got? My first tip is
Successful?
to the first tip is to kind of get involved yourself and realize that you have tremendous power to impact your quality of life daily. Even if you can't dramatically reduce your pain and fatigue levels, you can do things to help yourself and make it better. And I think that's really important, because it's not always going to be, you can't just dramatically drop your pain levels. Sometimes you're in a flare and that's just how it is. And so knowing you can help yourself, I find, is almost as important as actually helping yourself. And so that getting involved from the beginning and being aware of what you're doing and what you're trying. One thing I like to recommend is start tracking symptoms. I like simple tracking. I don't like that extensive spending lots of hours thinking about all our symptoms, but a simple way of tracking so that you can track your progress and see how things are going and start to see patterns. Because there's so much to try, you don't want to end up doing things that are not helping. But it's worth taking an experimental viewpoint. If I try this, what will happen? And I find it really hopeful that there's always more to try. Like, I've done tons of research and I've worked hard for the last 10 years. I'm up with all the research. I can hardly read a new book now and learn anything new, but there's still more things on my list to try and more researchers I'm watching, waiting for them to bring things out. So it's nice to have that mindset of things to give a go. And sometimes it's not always what you think is going to help. Yoga has made such a difference for me. It's not curing me, but it's helping a lot. And so sometimes playing with these things that you might maybe be dismissive about in the first place can actually be really helpful. And maybe you might just like it, and it might just be something fun as well, and that's cool too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And if it gives us a better sleep, and
yeah.
calms our nervous system down, and then our body can start to do a little bit of what it knows how to do, for
Yeah.
sure. Huh. So I'm just wondering, it's amazing, your resources. You've got several books and that you've written as well, and definitely we'll put those links out for our listeners. Is there anything else, Melissa, that you would like to share, or would you like to guide us through a little bit of Yoga Nidra? Um, is that a
Yeah.
possibility or not?
Yoga Nidra would be difficult because you don't usually do it sitting up, but I could definitely help you come into the moment and do a little bit of breathing,
Perfect.
if that's something you'd like. But
Yes.
I've also provided you a link to a free course that I provide, which has 4 short yoga tools. One of them is Yoga Nidra. One of them is a gentle restorative type of yoga. One is breathing, and one is a gentle movement practice. So those will give you a great introduction of each of the 4 tools that I love and use.
That's very kind of you, Melissa. Thank you very much for that. But yeah,
Yeah,
if we can finish off with a little bit of breathing,
yeah, sure.
be wonderful.
All right. So if you want to kind of settle your attention into your body and just pay attention to where it's at. Notice if your shoulders are holding tension or if they are feeling relaxed. Scan through your body and see if you're holding tension anywhere. You can place one hand on your abdomen and one hand on your chest. And just feel which is moving the most when you breathe. After a couple of breaths, if you can, try to direct your breath more towards your abdomen. Just notice the sensation. Don't force the breathing into any time, just let it come and go. Notice if your breathing has slowed down naturally. And scan through your body again. See if you're still holding any tension anywhere. Just feeling your breath. And you can focus on your breath for as long as is comfortable. Or when you're ready, you can open your eyes and return to whatever you're ready to do.
Well, thank you. That was beautiful. I love it that it's a little practice that you've shared with our listeners, and they can stop what they're doing in the middle of their day and put it to practice with us right now, and receive that brief respite from
Mm.
whatever is going on in our life.
It's wonderful to check in with yourself. Sometimes you don't realize where you're holding tension. Sometimes your shoulders are climbing up and then you like just letting it go can be such a release. You can do that anytime. You can do it if you're sitting in the car and at the office watching TV. But it's always good to check in and see, because sometimes it's sneaky where we hold our tension.
For sure, for sure. Is there anything else, Melissa, you'd like to share with us before we finish up?
The one thing I would love to say is, if you have ever tried yoga or were thinking about trying yoga, try to put away the preconceived ideas and make sure you find a good, accessible teacher, because you can make it fit your body and it can be helpful. But I see so many put off by the thought of what it is, or by having turned up into a class and the class is not suitable, or like I myself have looked at YouTube and it's for when you're in pain, and I'm like, I can't do that ever. So I would just encourage people to find something they can do, because there are definitely yoga tools. I mean, Yoga Nidra, definitely check that out, and give it a go. Give it a go several times if you're not used to meditation. Sometimes it can feel a bit difficult. Sometimes you can feel restless and you might not feel like it's done the job, but it will have done something. Sometimes we have to learn how to rest.
Yes, I totally agree. Well, words of wisdom from someone who's living it. And I really appreciate you sharing your tips and techniques and sharing your story. And I'll definitely be sharing the resources that you have as well.
Okay, thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thank you.